Israel.
When we think about World War II cinema, we think about the noise, the deafening rattle of the MG-42s, paratroopers falling from the skies, the roar of the Merlin engines, the hundreds of thousands of men in mud-soaked chaos on the front lines. But the 2026 historical thriller Pressure, directed by Anthony Matas, challenges us with a thrilling premise. What if the most dangerous enemy facing the Allied forces wasn't the German army? What if it was the weather? Pressure shrinks the massive global spanning scale of Operation Overlord down into a claustrophobic 72-hour psychological pressure cooker. It's the story of Group Captain James Stagg, a Scottish meteorologist who stood before the Supreme Allied Commander, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and argued that the meticulously planned June 5th invasion had to be halted or postponed, not because of Nazi fortifications, but because a catastrophic Atlantic storm was brewing. For history buffs and cinema fans alike, this isn't just another war movie. It's an exploration of leadership, the agony of decision-making, and the crushing weight of absolute responsibility. Pressure is a high-stakes drama set exclusively in smoke-filled war rooms. The film either lives or dies on its performances, and Pressure boasts an absolute powerhouse of a cast, anchored by a fascinating contrast in acting styles. Group Captain James Stagg is played by Andrew Scott, fresh off masterclasses in tension, like Ripley and All of Us Strangers. Scott plays Captain Stagg with zero interest in being liked. Stagg isn't a military man by trade, he's a rigorous, stubborn scientist. Scott captures this beautifully as he plays Stagg with a restrained, prickly exterior, yet you can feel the absolute panic and uncertainty humming just beneath his skin. Scott communicates all of this with just the twitch of his jaw, or the way he tightens his tie. Back home, his wife is in labor and ready to deliver. Yet, the fate of the free world is resting on his barometric readings and his ultimate decision to go or no go. And then, balancing Scott's internal friction, we have Oscar winner Brendan Fraser as Dwight D. Eisenhower. Following his career-redefining renaissance, Fraser delivers an Eisenhower that completely subverts the rigid, stern, general-on-a-coin archetype. There's an immense vulnerability to Ike. This is a man who knows that whatever decision that he makes will result in the deaths of thousands of young men. Fraser plays him as a fundamentally decent, weary leader who is desperately trying to anchor his own doubts and not repeat his past failures. Supporting them is an incredible ensemble. Carrie Condon, an Oscar nominee in her own right, is spectacular as Captain Kay Summersby. She is Eisenhower's driver and confidant, acting as the vital emotional glue in a room full of explosive egos. And Damian Lewis turns in a memorably sharp, aristocratic performance as Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, perfectly capturing the military friction and tension of the era. To truly understand the stakes of Pressure, you have to understand the historical reality confronting these men in June 1944. The film brilliantly anchors this by opening not with D-Day itself, but with its dark prelude, Exercise Tiger. For context, Exercise Tiger was a full-scale D-Day rehearsal in late April 1944 on the English coast. It was a complete disaster due to communication failures and a surprise attack by German E-boats. Over 700 American servicemen were killed by friendly fire and drowning before the real invasion even started. In Pressure, Anthony Matas used this tragedy to ground Eisenhower's psychological state. We see Fraser's Eisenhower surveying the aftermath of this rehearsal, physically and emotionally shaken. The lesson of Exercise Tiger was simple. If a rehearsal in poor conditions could cause this much devastation, a failed invasion at Normandy would mean the absolute collapse of the Allied war effort. If they launched into a storm, the landing craft would capsize, the air cover would be blinded, and the Western Allies would lose their one shot of breaching Fortress Europe. Over 300,000 lives are at stake. As a World War II enthusiast, the immediate question is always, how accurate is this? The answer is surprisingly deeply accurate, especially when it captures the ideological war over the science of weather forecasting. The central conflict of the film features Stagg clashing with his American counterpart, Colonel Irving P. Crick, played with fantastic, brash energy by Chris Messina. This wasn't a Hollywood invention, this was real history. Crick was a celebrity meteorologist in the United States who relied on historical analog forecasting, essentially looking at what the weather did on this date 20 years ago and assuming it would repeat. Crick promised Eisenhower clear skies and a smooth sailing for June 5th. There is a juxtaposition brewing here between Group Commander Stagg and Colonel Irving Crick. The two of them argue every step of the way over a pile of raw data weather charts, Northern European weather patterns, Crick's previous successful predictions, and justifying meteorology with the methods and technology of the time. Stagg, utilizing his newer European methods, looked at real-time, rapidly shifting North Atlantic pressure systems. He argued that the atmosphere was fundamentally unpredictable beyond 24 hours. The film treats the science of barometric pressure like a ticking time bomb. While the script condenses certain timelines and leans into the cinematic drama of Stagg's wife being in labor during the exact 72-hour window, and later to find out that the hospital that she was at was recently bombed and that there were casualties, it is that sadness and that fear, plus the ultimate responsibility for getting his prediction as accurate as possible. It is that emotional renaissance that captivates this movie. As the storm barrels into Europe, the Allied commanders then knew that Stagg was correct with his predictions. Their ultimate concern then was that postponing the attack with over 300,000 men would be detrimental to the invasion and the future of the war. Group Commander Stagg and his team kept working. They learned that a gap in the weather system was developing, and that this may be their only opportunity for success. This movie captures that moment in real time. And once again, he was correct. The now historical truth remains intact. D-Day was delayed from June 5th to June 6th because the scientists had the courage to stand up to the most powerful military commanders in the world and tell them that they were wrong. A movie driven entirely by dialogue needs a score that can build tension without overwhelming the performances. Enter composer Volker Bertelmann, who won an Academy Award for his haunting work on All Quiet on the Western Front. Bertelmann's score for Pressure is a masterclass in psychological atmospheric tension. Instead of relying on sweeping patriotic brass horns or triumphant military marches, Bertelmann uses ticking, percussive rhythms and lows, rumbling strings. The music mimics the literal rise and fall of atmospheric pressure. It sounds like a ticking clock, a racing heartbeat, and the distant, ominous roll of thunder all at once. It never lets the audience relax. The soundtrack acts as the invisible storm cloud inside the room, constantly reminding us that, outside those black curtains, time is running out. For any World War II enthusiast, Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan is the undisputed mountain. It set the definitive visual language for D-Day. So how does Pressure coexist in the shadow of that masterpiece? By being its mirror image. If Saving Private Ryan is about the macro horror of the battlefield, the tactical nightmare of the men on the sand, Pressure is about the micro agony of the boardroom. It is the architectural blueprint to Spielberg's execution. When the decision is finally made, and Eisenhower utters his famous simple phrase, "Let's go," director Anthony Matas makes a brilliant artistic choice. Instead of trying to recreate Spielberg's beach landing with CGI, Pressure utilizes pristine, beautifully colorized archival 35mm footage of the actual troops moving out. It is incredibly moving. After spending 90 minutes watching these commanders agonize over the safety of their men, Seeing the actual faces of the real soldiers who crossed the channel that day hits you like a physical wave. Saving Private Ryan shows you the cost of the decision. Pressure shows you the absolute torture of having to make it. Ultimately, Pressure is an exceptional addition to the World War II cinematic canon. It proves that you don't need a $100 million budget for explosions to create an intense, gripping war movie. By focusing on the human cost of leadership and the quiet brilliance of unsung heroes like James Stagg, it delivers a thrilling tribute to the men and the minds that saved the free world. If you love history, psychological thrillers, or just elite acting, Pressure is an absolute must-watch. So what do you think? Did Brendan Fraser capture the weight of Eisenhower for you? Did this movie give you additional perspectives of the war? And how do you think it holds up against the classic World War II dramas? Let me know in the comments section below. I greatly appreciate you guys for listening. Please hit that like and to subscribe for more grab your popcorn moments into cinema history. And as always, turn off your damn phone and just watch the movie.